Hey gamers, I'm Austin from OneGamersOpinion, and this is my non-spoiler review of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Final Fantasy VII Remake has to be the most anticipated remake of all time, since the original Final Fantasy VII is many people's favorite game of all time, and it popularized the JRPG genre in the West. Let's dive right into it. In terms of game design, this game really strays from the original. The original is a traditional, open JRPG, and this one is a much more linear action role-playing game. I actually really like the way Square executed in the remake, as it allows for the developers to expand upon the events of the original in Midgard. The problem with this choice is that many of the chapters only focus on getting from point A to point B and killing some enemies along the way. I found these to be the most boring and low-light parts of the game. I loved the combat, but when we were just moving from one place to the other, there were small things that were advancing the story, but it really felt like it was just padding. The other low light is the side quests that are done. They're not really bad at face value, but the way the game is set up, you have a lot of chapters where there are no side quests, and then there's a chapter that will have 4, 5, 6, or more side quests, and so it feels like you have to do a lot in really quick succession, or you won't be able to do them at all in your playthrough. And so I found that I was getting really burnt out of the side quests, and they also felt very repetitive. Most of them follow the template of, I need to do something, but there's a monster over there, Cloud, could you take care of it? And then Cloud grunts and then goes and takes care of it. When looking at the gameplay is one of the major highlights of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Square Enix did a great job in transitioning the turn-based combat of the original into real-time combat. I think it does a great job of just modernizing it for today's audience. I really loved how it can be a really friendly button masher at the beginning as you get up in guys' face with Cloud, but it gets a lot tougher as you go. As you go throughout the game, the combat becomes a lot more strategy over speed. A lot of this is due to the game's stagger mechanics and ATB management. Staggering is so important because the enemies are prone while staggering, and they take a lot more damage. So instead of you just wailing away at them like you would be early in the game, you start to look for their weaknesses. You start to see what attacks are upgrading the stagger, and then you start doing that more. The ATB is what allows you to do more complex actions. It's what allows you to do your more powerful hits, and what allows you to heal. It's what allows you to do pretty much any complex action. So you want to get ATB, but the only way to get ATB is by doing basic actions with your characters. So if you're just manning Cloud the whole time and you're not switching apart from your party, none of them are going to be really getting a lot of ATB, while Cloud's going to be getting a lot of it. So this ATB mechanic really encourages you as a player to maneuver around the whole party, get ATB, and then really find out who you're most comfortable with, because I think Cloud obviously is a player that a lot of people want to play as, but as you start moving around, you find out that each character has their own strengths and weaknesses, and I think they do a great job of mending the party as a whole. So this really allows for combat to be very deep, and allows you to be able to take your time and really delve into it for hours. On top of this, I think materia is super fun. I love materia management, and I love how you can use it to specialize each character and allows you to mold them to the way you want to play the game. And on top of it, it's just fun. Like, I haven't had this much fun just just delving into combat in a while. I find a lot of combat systems pretty basic, and I just thought this one was fun, especially in narrative-focused games. I think they really tend to lean heavier on that than the combat, and I just thought this one was super fun, and the game did a great job of it. If the gameplay is super fun playing as the party, this game is also super fun watching and learning about the party throughout the game. The narrative of Final Fantasy VII is sensational in my opinion. I think the game is so good because of the characters. This game does a great job at making you invested in them, and your main party specifically, I just fell in love with. Cloud, Tifa, Barret, and Aerith just felt so real and so rounded, and we had so many different relationships between them that I believed everything, and I really just got immersed in what was happening. Whenever a major plot point happened throughout the game, the way the characters acted, the way the world interacted because of it, it all just felt so real and it felt so grounded for the most part. They really fleshed out the side characters too. I feel like I know Avalanche better now. I feel like I know Shinra better now. The Turks better now. And I think the one that shines best is Marlene and Barrett. Barrett in the original can come across as very one note, as the man who's going to scream and yell and doesn't really have another side to him. I think since this is full-fledged cutscenes and we get to hear voice acting, we get to see him be the big raw guy, but also we get to see the tender connection he has with Marlene. We get to see the tender connection he has with all the people he's leading. And I think Barrett really comes across and grows the most from the original to this game. With that said, the biggest problem with this game is the story as well, because I feel like there's major story beats that you will not understand if you have not played the original or have no prior knowledge of the Final Fantasy VII universe. I believe this because the original has so many major twists and shocking reveals, and this game is setting up those. It's starting to lay the groundwork, laying the seeds, like the original does. But the difference is the original resolves those, and which shows you those in that game. With these, we're not sure when we're going to find out when these get resolved. These could be ones that don't get resolved until part 2, 3, 4. We're not really sure how many parts this is going to be. Square hasn't told us yet. So, are some of these plot points they mix in there, are we not going to find out for 3, 5, 7, 9 years? Because if these are some plot points that aren't resolved till 2030, I think this is really going to not have this game be remembered very well, because people are going to feel lied to, or the impact of these seeds aren't going to be hit as hard because it's not one big self-contained story, it's multiple smaller stories throughout multiple games. I think the biggest example of this is Sephiroth. He feels like a big bad that has no context or motives in this game for being here. He's just here, and if you know Final Fantasy VII, the original, you know why he's here. He has a great reason for being here. It makes complete sense. But without that knowledge, I have no idea why you would know he was here. You would just think you just know he's the bad guy because he's the bad guy, and that's it. Also, the final 1.5 hours of this game make no sense with the original game or with the context of this game. Like I said, this game is so grounded, and it does a great job from chapters 1 to 16 of making you feel like you're here and this is real. And then chapter 17 and 18, the ending chapters just say nope and throws that all out the window, and it just makes no sense. I don't want to spoil anything about what happens with this remake, but this feels less like a remake and more like a weird sequel in a way. It's weird. Like I was never thought I said that going into this, but that's really what it is. It's a weird sequel where you need to have prior knowledge really to go into it. But with that, let's put a number on it.
She's tougher than me.
Final Fantasy VII Remake has some of the highest highs of any game in my opinion, but it also has enough flaws that really show. With everything considered, I would give Final Fantasy VII Remake an 8.5 out of 10, and I would definitely recommend this game to anyone, even if you have not played the original. The biggest pros are the game's combat and characters. They're some of the best that video games have to offer, but its biggest cons do show, with the filler and many chapters and side quests, and the confusing ending. But all this is just one gamer's opinion of Final Fantasy VII Remake. I want to hear your guys' opinions down in the comments below, or send them to me on Twitter at _OneGamersOpinion. If you liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if you want to hear more reviews, discussions, and rankings of video games, then subscribe. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.